Either we heal as a team, or we're going to crumble. Inch by inch, play by play, till we're finished. We're in hell right now, gentlemen. Believe me. And we can stay here, get the shit kicked out of us, or we can fight our way back into the light. We can climb out of hell. 1 inch at a time. You know, when you get old in life, things get taken from you. I mean, that's part of life. But you only learn that when you start losing stuff. You find out life's this game of inches. So is football. Because in either game, life or football, the margin for error is so small. I mean, 1/2 a step too late or too early, and you don't quite make it. 1/2 second too slow, too fast, you don't quite catch it. The inches we need are everywhere around us. They're in every break of the game, every minute, every second. On this team, we fight for that inch. On this team, we tear ourselves and everyone else around us to pieces for that inch. We claw our fingernails for that inch. Because we know when we add up all those inches, that's going to make the fucking difference between winning and losing. Between living and dying. I'll tell you this, in any fight, it's the guy who's willing to die who's going to win that inch. And I know if I'm going to have any life anymore, it's because I'm still willing to fight and die for that inch. Because that's what living is. There's 6 inches in front of your face. Now, I can't make you do it. You got to look at the guy next to you. Look into his eyes. Now, I think you're going to see a guy who will go that inch with you. You're going to see a guy who will sacrifice himself for this team because he knows when it comes down to it, you're going to do the same for him. That's a team, gentlemen. And either we heal now as a team, or we will die as individuals.
Ideas are bulletproof.
Welcome to the show. It's Wednesday, June 29th, 2011. This is Down the Rabbit Hole, and I'm your host, Popeye, from FederalJack.com. Today I'm joined by my good friend, Susan Lindauer, and she's here to update everybody as to the status of what's going on in Libya, because she's been getting more videos and more information and more stories and stuff of the horrific war crimes coming out of Libya. And as she gets the information, she passes it on to me, and then the two of us, between the two of us, we can update the articles that she's written and the page that I've created, which is both her article and the page that I made, and then the special website that we made for the videos itself, have gone viral all over the world. And when I say all over the world, I mean literally all over the world. Countries all throughout Europe, France, the Netherlands, the UK, Germany, Spain, Portugal, just incredible. All over Russia, Japan, Korea, sites linking up to it in Cuba. It's just incredible. All over the United States, people are finally seeing what's really going on in Libya, and they're disgusted by it. Susan's been, like a work dog, just every day on all these different channels, just getting interviewed. It's incredible. So, Susan, I saw you today on RT. Just incredible. The news this stuff is finally getting out there. So, kudos to you for sticking to your guns and having the balls to expose this stuff. Thank you very much for what you do.
Well, listen, I couldn't do it if there wasn't an internet blog commitment from you and Federal Jack, and the Intel Hub has also been terrific. It's the Intel Hub that hooked us up. And I'm just so grateful to Bob Tuskin and Alex Thomas and these guys and all of us together, working together, making this thing happen. And your server, who I don't know if you want to say who they are, we're all committed to getting the truth out.
Very true. And my IT guys, I got to give them a big thanks. I won't call them out by name, but because I don't want to get them in trouble. But the two guys that do my IT work, you guys know who you are. You're listening to the broadcast. Big thumbs up. Thank you very much.
Yeah, definitely. Because I got to tell you, we know very well that the CIA and the NSA and all those guys have tried to crash this. Because this is so devastating. Bringing out the truth right now is putting a big monkey wrench in the pro-war plans to invade Libya in October and November. And we know that. And Obama is running out of excuses. And every time he pops up with something, he's getting his facts wrong, and we're coming in and correcting him. And the more knowledge there is throughout the world of what's actually happening, the harder it is for them to pull this off. And that's better for everybody if we succeed, I think.
Oh yeah, because they're going to start World War III, and they don't whether they know it, which obviously they do. They're not that stupid, but they know what they're doing. They know they're stirring up a hornet's nest that they shouldn't be screwing with. Plus, they're screwing with other countries as well at the same time. They're picking fights with like 5 or 6 different people. For what? What are we doing? We've gone from being this, we're justified, we got attacked, we must defend ourselves, to being the schoolyard bully.
Yes, the schoolyard bully, absolutely. That's a very good way of putting it. And we are in danger of starting World War III, and I think that it is imperative, and the Internet blogs are critical. I feel like, this is, before the Iraqi war, some of you guys will know that I was heavily involved in Iraqi pre-war intelligence. And before the Iraqi war, I was going around Capitol Hill saying, look, there's a peace option, it'll solve the problems, but there was no real way to get this in front of the people. And if the people had had the facts that Congress had, and the Democrats and Republicans, there was no discrimination here. Everybody on Capitol Hill had the information. And they came back and they lied to the people, and they invented a whole new story about pre-war intelligence so that they could get themselves out of trouble. But the American people were never, and the world community was none the wiser for their lies, because they didn't have the access to the direct intelligence. Well, this time I'm like, no, we're just going to give it straight to the people, and the members of Congress can catch up with us.
And this time they can't throw you in jail for a year for doing for doing what the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence clearly state you're supposed to do. But hey,
exactly,
Susan's a bad guy because she actually did. Many people are keyboard commandos. People though, I would do this or I would do that, and here's Susan who actually stood up and did it, and she got locked up for it. So
yeah.
We live in a totally Orwellian world. It's just that every day it gets worse and worse. Right before we came on, I was telling you Obama did that speech today, and he was, I don't need, congressional approval, and the War Power Act doesn't apply to Libya, and then he pretty much told Congress to stifle it. It was his version of you're either with us or against us, pretty much.
Well, it was an amazing story because amazing speech because he reinvented a whole story about Libya that is entirely false. I was on RT earlier today, and I urge everybody to listen to that interview. You will find that refresher for those of you who don't know, I covered Libya and Iraq at the United Nations from 1995 to 2003, right up until the invasion. And in fact, I kept in touch with Libya right up until my arrest in 2004, though it was much quieter after the Iraq war started. But I did stay in touch with them until 2004. But Libya, our first operation, the primary purpose of our operation was to get terrorists out of Libya. And it was very successful. Our operation started in 95. By about the end of 98 or the beginning of 99, we felt that we had satisfied our objective that Libya was no longer a sanctuary for terrorists. And honestly, some of those people just died in the desert. They didn't even make it out alive. And then others of them were relocated and went on to other countries. But the problem was is that if you bounce them out of one country, they just go somewhere else. And so the less famous terrorists, honest to God, just got dumped in the desert. They, but they were dumped by, what I can tell you is they were dumped by Western intelligence to confirm the deaths.
Yeah, once
they were cleaned out.
Once they were done with them, they threw them out like a piece of trash. Just completely.
Well, no. These were real terrorists.
Oh, these were real bad guys.
Yeah, these were the real bad guys.
Well, I don't know.
But they're gone. They're gone. They're out of Libya now.
So they killed the real bad guys and installed their own bad guys. Isn't that interesting? Susan, we're going to
isn't that interesting?
Hang out. We'll be right back. Stay tuned, listeners. You don't want to miss this. Welcome back. It's Wednesday, June 29th, 2011. This is Down the Rabbit Hole. I'm your host, Popeye, and today I'm joined by my good friend, Susan Lindauer. And Susan, during the break, you and I were discussing Pan Am Flight 103 that crashed in Lockerbie. And, we both feel that it's important that people, again, and hear the message and that we reiterate the fact that that was not Libyans at all. It was Syrians acting under control of the CIA, and the reason they did it, and Susan will be able to, get into detail about it. But the reason they did it was because there was a CIA oversight team that came in and found out what this team was doing, and they said, "Whoa, what the hell are you doing? You can't be doing this." And they were going back to D.C. to end it, and they got ended instead because they said that obviously this little rogue CIA element didn't want to lose its funding and didn't want to be tattled on, which happens all the time. These guys go off the grid, they go nuts, they get flooded with their own power, like delusions of here, and they go off and they do crazy stuff. Sometimes it really isn't a huge conspiracy. Sometimes it's just a small one involving a small team. But in this case, this CIA team, whether they were acting on instructions or not, they blew up Pan Am Flight 103 and then blamed it on the Libyans. So, Susan, go ahead and expound on that.
That is absolutely correct. It was fascinating, and I want to tell you something. I have confirmation of this from my own CIA handler, Dr. Richard Fuse, who was he was the only human intelligence involved in Syria at a certain period of the 1980s. And he had worked with Robert Baer, but he stayed in longer than Baer did. So they had worked together at one point, but then Richard was alone for a while as well. And he had met Hafez al-Assad and all kinds of. He was business partners with Raisa Gorbachev. And on the surface, the cover was that they ran a modeling agency, a Russian modeling agency, the Natashas. But behind the scenes, they sold computers to the Soviet government that had a back door for the CIA to hack into the Soviet government. And Richard told me that Richard was the first to insist that Lockerbie was a CIA operation that had backfired. It was like a false flag operation. The CIA a rogue team had gotten involved in heroin trafficking out of the Bekaa Valley during the Terry Anderson hostage crisis. 96 high-profile Westerners had been kidnapped by Islamic jihadi groups. And those included Terry Anderson, who was the Associated Press reporter, Jerry Levin, who was the CNN bureau chief. They took Terry Waite, who was the Anglican emissary for the for the Anglican bishop. In Britain, they took the head of the international school of Beirut, and a whole bunch of high-profile Westerners like that, very high-profile. And Terry Anderson was held for 7 years. He was chained in a basement, okay? Jerry Levin was held in a farmhouse, also chained, I believe, for 3 years. And these people didn't get out for 1 hour a day. Like if you're in prison, you get to go out for 1 hour a day and kind of stretch your legs. When we say they were chained, they didn't move for 7 years. This is hideous stuff. They peed in a bucket. They were beaten. They were subjected to mock executions. And some of them were tortured. The CIA bureau chief, Buckley, was tortured to death. And when I say tortured to death, they beat him with bricks and chains. They smashed his skull. They broke his ribs. They tore out his fingernails. They may have torn out a couple of teeth.
Didn't they take down a hotel in response to them doing that or something? Yeah, I mean, these were really bad people. So the CIA had Which, by the way, do exist, not to cut you off, but yes, they do exist. Because I say all the time that radical Islam, I get a lot of heat for this because I say, well, we created it. We did create it, but it's a beast that got out of our control. So yes, there are actually bad guys out there. So that's even worse because we focus on a phantom entity that doesn't exist when we should really be focusing on these evil, sick, twisted guys that we trained and now let loose. And now they're creating their own little psychopaths all over the world.
Well, now this is very important what you just said because, see, it started off with a good intention, and I also heard from not only from my CIA handler who told me the story, but one day I had been the press secretary for Senator Carol Moseley Braun, and during this Lockerbie negotiations, I went out of our office on the Hart Building, in downtown Washington, Capitol Hill, and I went out for lunch, and some guy grabbed me as I was walking across the Supreme Court office, and he said, "Hello, Susan Lindauer. I've been waiting for you. I want to talk to you." And he took me out for lunch, and I've never known his name. He didn't tell me his name. He didn't want me to know his name. But he said, "I want you to hear the other side of the story." So he told me their side of the story. So I know Richard's side and I know their side. And what happened from their side was that they lost control of the situation. But they had originally decided that they would infiltrate the heroin trafficking in order to identify where the hostages were being held. The problem was within that team, there was a rogue double agent who continuously fed information about when the CIA was closing in, like they were going to capture the guys. They were moving in. They were identifying where the hovels and the coven of the alleyways where they were being held in the basements and these strange off places, off the map places. And as soon as the CIA would close in, all of a sudden they would be moved again. And that's because there was an insider on the CIA side who was telling the Islamic Jihad when the CIA was coming in.
I'm willing to bet the guy was Mossad, and I had to throw that in there only because that happens a lot, and that happened before 9/11 too. The FBI was watching, or the FBI and the CIA were keeping an eye on a bunch of terrorists, and every time they would, try to make a move on them, right before they would go to make a move, these guys would change up and change how they were doing things. So
that's right.
And it all leads back, and I say Mossad because they have their fingers involved, because they have an agent buried inside every Middle Eastern, radical group there is. It doesn't matter which one it is. Mossad has an agent buried within, at least one agent buried within each one. So they know what's going on. So that would be very easy for them to pull the strings on both sides. And I'm not saying, again, that's not being an anti-Semite, because Mossad's controlled by the very same evil people that control the CIA, the NSA, and everybody else.
There you go.
So it's just one hand playing the other hand against each other. That's what they do. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, Susan. I just wanted to make sure
No, not at all. That's a very, very good observation, and it's true. They are the problem was that, like, for example, Terry Anderson ended up being held for 7 years. So these people, these were in deplorable conditions. So the CIA had gone in ostensibly to infiltrate the heroin trafficking, which should have taken 6 months. And the whole operation should have been mopped up, catching everybody, getting all those people out of there, 6 to 8 months at most. It shouldn't have taken any longer than that. Instead, it takes 7 years.
Kind of makes you wonder why it took that long. You know, politics were playing into that, and
Well, and when we come back, we can talk about how it did work.
Okay.
And how then Libya got shafted on Lockerbie.
All right, we'll pick up right there when we come back from break. Nice segue, Susan. We'll be right back, guys. It's Down the Rabbit Hole. You're listening to me on the Orion Talk Radio Network, Micro 1650 AM.
They lie, they scam, they cheat and steal. They plot, they fun, they act, it's real. They watch, they hunt, they punish and kill.
Question 46 with your hosts John Preston and Jeff Covington. Sundays 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern on the Orion Talk Radio Network.
Welcome back to the show. It's Wednesday, June 29th, 2011. That's right. I love this song. It gets me fired up. I'd really like to go down to Capitol Hill and just start slapping people in the face, honestly. Of course, they're all a bunch of Sallys. They would, call the Capitol Police. I really think our founding
they'd be better off if you did it.
I really think our
they
founding
need a good SWAT.
I think our founding fathers, Susan, really are rolling over in their graves. Honestly, I mean, if they were alive today, they would not be they would not tolerate half the crap that's going on in the quote unquote name of protection and justice and everything else. It's just ridiculous. TSA can't protect
I agree with you. I agree with you entirely.
TSA and the police can't protect you. You have to be able to protect yourself, and that's what the founding fathers understood. And, like they say, a well-armed society is a very polite society. Nobody's mouthing off to each other because everybody's got a gun. Nobody wants to piss off the other guy with a gun. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I got to tell you that I live in Washington, in La La Land, and it is. I live in Maryland, actually. I'm right in the suburbs, and.
Gun-free zone.
We got lots of guns, and it's just not working.
Well, there is for some reason, I shouldn't say for some reason, they allow the criminals out, of the jails early. They parole certain guys, people that they let out. Certain people are let out knowingly because they know they're going to create more havoc, and therefore it calls for, there's a justification for more police and a bigger police state and more laws and everything else. I mean, that's how the system works. Some people don't think that that's how the system works, but, it's corrupt like that.
The system is broken. The system is seriously broken, and this Lockerbie case really shows how it happens. Because it resulted in the case of Lockerbie, it resulted in a huge breakdown of moral and police authority, where you had the CIA providing cover for heroin shipments from Lebanon through Frankfurt Airport and on into New York City and on to Los Angeles.
The CIA shipping drugs, Susan? Oh my God, I'm so shocked.
I'm shocked, just shocked. And what happened was on Lockerbie, on the bombing of Pan Am 103, the defense intel, the hostages were held for so long, and there were so many times that the CIA got close and the Defense Intelligence Agency got close, and they knew what was happening. They figured it out, that there was a rogue agent who was a double agent who was feeding intelligence to the hostage keepers, and that they were telling them when they needed to move these guys. But the conditions were hellacious. This is gross inhumanity. And so the Defense Intelligence Agency had those 8 officers had the integrity to call in the guys from Washington, and they said, you guys need to come in from Washington and do a serious investigation of what the heck is going on here. And we think that we're confident you're gonna find that there's a rogue agent team that is subverting our efforts to rescue these hostages. And so, sure enough, the Washington guys come in. They bring in some FBI. They bring in some people from the CIA headquarters to do the investigation, and all of them come into Lebanon. They do their investigation. They do prove the heroin trafficking. When they go out, they were flying on Pan Am 103. And what's interesting is that the State Department issued an internal travel advisory that was not put out to the public, but which was distributed through embassies. And it told everybody to get off that particular flight because Pan Am 103 was going down. So they told everybody, the State Department told everybody to get off that flight. And they did. Sure enough, they did. And which freed up seats at Christmas time for students from Syracuse University who were traveling standby to go home for the holidays to see their families. And a whole bunch of kids got on the flight, 18, 19, 20 years old, got on that flight, having no idea, having no access, no political access. And then when the plane blew up, all those kids died. And that is the epitome of corruption of this system.
It's disgusting. And we blame Libya and use that as a justification to bomb and kill more innocent people and blow them up into little pieces.
Absolutely. And I for one am outraged over it. And it's not only because it's Libya. I mean, it's not, the point is not that it's Libya. It could be anybody. You know, tagging somebody else as responsible for such a heinous crime so that the United States can escape its own responsibilities for what it did. That's just not going to be acceptable. I wouldn't care if they blamed Zimbabwe or if they blamed Portugal or if they blamed,
easily be
Sierra Leone. It doesn't matter. They didn't do it.
The same thing, Susan, and blaming us. And then coming over here and saying, well, we have to have a no-fly zone and bomb the hell out of the United States because look what they do all over the world. I mean,
that's right.
Tables could turn on us. We're so arrogant. A lot of the people that don't want to get involved in politics, well, that will never happen here. Really? You need to pull your head from your rear end and look around you because the Chinese already own almost everything. If they decided to come over and bomb us, we wouldn't be able to defend ourselves because we're everywhere else.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Us. We have we have some forces here at home, but realistically, it wouldn't be enough to we're spread too thin. We're like the Roman Empire right now. Our national security is actually worse. And instead, we have the CIA. Instead of the CIA actually doing what their mandate says, we have them doing the exact opposite, helping build a new world order, killing off their own. I say this all the time. They eat their own. When they get in their way, they eat their own. They don't care. Look what they did to you. Look what they did.
Yeah, look what they did to me. Look what they did to me.
So people understand. Susan's second cousin is Andy Card, the Bush's former chief of staff. Talk about eating their own. They don't care if you get in their way. If you pose a threat in any way, shape, or form, you're done. Susan, luckily they didn't view you as too much of a threat that they didn't get a chance to take you.
Well, listen, Nate, guys, I do take issue with that because what they tried to do to me was forcibly drug me with to the point that I would be chemically lobotomized. Okay, they actually, and I fought it. I refused to do it. I wasn't going along with the game. I was like, oh, hell no, I'm not going to do that for you. I draw the line on chemical lobotomies for the sake of politicians. But they actually advocated forcibly drugging me with Haldol, Prozac, and Ativan. All three of those things. and I would have been a zombie.
Oh, you would have been a complete...
Oh, my God. And for no reason, they admitted, they said, well, yeah, she doesn't hallucinate. She doesn't have his
Oh, there was
schizophrenia.
a reason.
Yeah, there was a reason, all right. But check this out. The whole time, I was arrested on the charge that I had gone and told my cousin and Secretary of State Colin Powell that there would be no weapons of mass destruction inside Iraq, and that Iran would rise as a regional power in the Middle East. And I mean, I told them, like, I gave them a letter that had a whole bunch that outlined the consequences of the war. I said the war would cost $1.6 trillion. Iran would rise as a superpower. There would be no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. The war would become a magnet for terrorists, and charismatic leaders would rise up and replace Osama bin Laden. And I said that democracy would throw power away from the moderate Islamic people to the fundamentalists. I was right on all counts.
I was going to say, wow, are you reading off a checklist, Susan? Because it's like check, 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 and check.
Check, and check. And yeah, that's right. And get this, I was arrested on the charge that I did tell Congress and the White House this. Then, once they had me under indictment, they came back to the people, and I couldn't speak anymore because they weren't going to give me a trial. They came back to the people and said, oh, it's those the war is we should blame the intelligence community for this war. If only the intelligence community had told us, we would have stopped it. But they didn't tell us.
Meanwhile,
it's their fault.
Fail for telling them.
Yes.
Pay no attention to Susan, people. We had no idea.
That's right.
We're going to break. Stick around, guys. We'll be back in a few minutes. We got to pay the bills. Listening to us on the Orion Talk Radio Network.
Friends with the enemy, a presidential terrorist. Ain't that a contradiction? I guess it goes to show the truth is stranger than fiction. But they don't even show the truth when soldiers are missing. I'm only trying to show them the dream. That's what I tell myself to cope with and deal. Trying to convince myself these several years were not even real. Trying to convince myself the media was making this up. That if I wait here, Morpheus will be waking me up. But instead I'm in my bed, game over. I ain't even drank nothing, but I got a hangover. First I was drunk.
Welcome back. This is the final segment, Down the Rabbit Hole, June 29th, 2011. Today I'm joined by my good friend Susan Lindauer. Susan, we were talking during the break about the new war crimes that have been going on since the last time I interviewed you about a week and a half ago. You've actually gotten some new video, which we will be getting up within a few days. Go ahead and tell the listeners some of the new things you've discovered.
Okay, this is very important because one of the things that's happened is a lot of people are so upset about these videos that they're suggesting maybe it's not Libya, maybe it's Iraq, maybe it is Gaddafi who's doing it. They don't want to admit that the rebels are actually capable of this stuff and that the United States is backing the wrong side. Okay, I want you to know something. We have tracked down the family of the beheaded Libyan soldier. Okay? We have a fact-finding delegation in Libya, in Tripoli, traveled to that man's home and interviewed his family on video. And that video has come through, or is coming through right now, and we should have that up by the weekend. We also have more documentation of the rapes. Tragically, some of these women have almost died. Not only are they gang raping women, but they're cutting off their breasts. And you have to realize that these are mostly 15, 16-year-old girls who are very sheltered, who are very pure and pardon me, virginal, chaste. You understand the concept of virginity in the Islamic world, and you have to even if you don't like Islam, you have to grieve for these little girls who are hoping that all their lives to have to be good women, honorable women, and then they're kidnapped at gunpoint in the middle of the night and taken to rape parties as virgins. Okay, now think about this. These are deeply traumatizing experiences, and they are gang raping them, and then they're cutting off their breasts with knives while they're alive. Okay, they're not even cutting their throats first. They're cutting off their breasts and leaving them to bleed to death.
And a lot of people have asked me about that. They said, well, that's Al-Qaeda didn't do that. That's something that you see in the Congo. Well, who do you think trained? You don't think that the CIA helped train some of those very evil people that ran around killing people in the Congo? We hired those guys as mercenaries to guard our bases in Iraq. Are you kidding me? I mean, they're mercenaries from that were the war criminals in the Congo were hired and have on record killed U.S. troops on the U.S. Embassy grounds in Iraq because U.S. troops are not allowed to carry weapons on the embassy grounds. Only the private security guards can. And these guys are all mercenaries that were running around killing people in Uganda and the Congo and everywhere else. They're all interconnected.
It's very upsetting. And this is like Khmer Rouge crimes and Rwanda crimes. This is like Sierra Leone crimes where they chopped off their arms. These are hideous things. And can you imagine now everybody we all like to hate Gaddafi, but really and truly, would you be proud if the United States was backing the forces in Sierra Leone who cut off the arms, who hacked off these arms with machetes and left these people with no arms in their farming communities? And even the little children were hacked up.
They hanged one guy upside down by his feet and saw his head off.
Yeah.
I mean, this is who we're backing, people. These are the same monsters that we were so afraid of. We had to hide under our beds years ago because these were the bad guys our kids were going to fight in Iraq, and they died fighting in Iraq. And now we're backing these very same scumbags. How does that make you feel? Because it pisses me off.
Yes. And people want to say, oh, maybe it's really Gaddafi's forces who are doing it. So I challenge all of you. This weekend, we're going to have that video up. And I want you all to look at it and you're going to see this is definitely inside Libya. This is a man who was a soldier working for Gaddafi who was killed. We're going to have more. We have a testimonial affidavits from written affidavits from human rights attorneys inside Libya who are interviewing the rape victims. We have some videos of the rape victims that are going to go up. And Popeye, do you think those videos of the rape victims could be up this weekend? Do you think that it'll be that soon?
Yes, we could. We're trying. I
know you've got so much to do.
The website we hosted it from has been under heavy attack, obviously, since we created it for it. But we have to fix 2 of the older videos, so we're going to be playing with it anyway. So we should have them up by the end of the weekend, and then that way we can show everybody the testimonies. And not only that, Webster Tarpley, because he's part of this fact-finding mission, along with Wayne Madsen, Cynthia McKinney, others. Okay, they've all been rotating in and out. And Webster Tarpley talked to a family that said they've already got plans because they know there's going to be a ground invasion. Gaddafi has given out RPGs and Kalashnikovs, AK-47s, to the residents, millions of them. And the residents have said, we'll take them because we want to defend our country. See, the residents of Libya actually call the quote-unquote rebels that we're backing, they call them terrorists. Okay, that's what they consider them. Okay, so we're not helping anybody. The people that we're bombing and killing, Gaddafi's army, it's not a standard standing army. It's his people that are standing up in defense of their own country. We're bombing innocent people defending their own land. How does that make you feel? That would be like the Red Chinese coming in here and bombing the hell out of the civilian populace trying to defend the United States. That's exactly what it would be like. It's the same thing. We're killing women. We have women that are 18, 19-year-old women that are standing up to defend their country because they know that there's other girls that are being dragged off and raped, and they want to stand up while they still can so they don't get beheaded and have their breasts cut off and get raped. And we bomb them with 2,000-pound JDAMs because, hey, that's what we do. We'll bomb you back to the Stone Age.
And listen, this is very important what you just said. In response to the NATO accusations that Gaddafi's forces have been handing out Viagra, Cynthia McKinney found that the major supplier of Viagra, the major importer to Libya, was the United States government, who is handing out Viagra to older rebels, trying to get them motivated to fight and to get them energized. And so, actually, the United States has fueled some of this rape binge itself as a direct consequence of providing Viagra to its own rebel soldiers. Gaddafi's response to the rapes has been very different. Gaddafi has brought out his very famous women soldiers. Gaddafi, in classical history, the old Amazon women soldiers were from Libya. And there's a long tradition of women from Libya being pretty tough ladies. And in fact, they are now, Gaddafi has deployed women soldiers and units throughout his area, so that women soldiers are on hand to protect other women, and there's no possibility, they really are, policing it. So he's actually acting in the most responsible manner possible to make sure that the men are not just out there, boys will be boys. There's none of that happening. Gaddafi's actually the one who's on the right side of this. And if we really believe in human rights, and if we're really opposed to terrorism, then we should stop financing Al-Qaeda in Libya, and we should start protecting the people of Libya by supporting Gaddafi, of all things.
Well, it sounds crazy.
Leave them alone.
It sounds crazy, but also, if we just leave him alone, he can handle his own business. We have to step in because these guys are, help us, they're going to kill innocent people, when, in fact, it's time and time again. It's shown that they've been killing innocent people. Again, that fact-finding mission, Tarpley, he when he came back, he said, in fact, that he was still over there, and Alex Jones talked to him via cell phone. And Tarpley said that the families over there, they've got entire families where the family has talked about it, and they have enough weapons amongst just one family to take on an entire platoon. And they're prepared. These people are mentally prepared to do it. They are gonna create a friggin' bloodbath based on lies. This is going to start World War III. We have to stop this, and we have to get these people out of power because they are just psychotic.
Yes. And all this stuff about Libya's involvement in terrorism, it's BS. Honest to God, our operation in the 1990s, got the terrorists out of sanctuary in Libya. By the beginning of 1999, Libya handed over the two Libyan men for the Lockerbie trial in March of 1999, and by that time, Libya was cleaned out. We went way beyond Lockerbie. We handled all the terrorists that Gaddafi had been giving sanctuary to. They were just executed in the desert, or they were evicted. And Libya has had no terrorist threat since the 1990s. That's a fact.
Well, they will now, because
now they will because we imported it. We are creating it.
Just like in
Iraq.
But
it's not homegrown.
Just like in Iraq. There was no Al-Qaeda in Iraq, Susan, until we brought it in. All right.
Until we brought it in.
We get cut off again. We'll be back. Susan, thank you very much for coming on.
I loved it. Popeye, awesome. Thank you very much. And thank you so much for having the guts to post this.
No problem. Guys, Susan will be back on.
Thank you.